Okay, Rich, I just want to know, what can people expect from coming into the sandbox today to listen about all things how to tee up excellence in service at every level?
Yeah, I love that. So the first thing we're going to really dive deep into is how to break down what service is and what hospitality is, and how to build an environment where those things come together and are celebrated and are recognized and equal, great opportunities for the company. The next thing that we're going to talk about is how best to create that environment where people can stand up and raise their hand and say, I've got a great idea, and how to come to the table with everything that you need to be successful and to make your company more successful, and really build an arena for yourself to be celebrated and appreciated, and help your employees do the same.
Awesome. Rich, I cannot wait for the sandbox conversation.
For sure. Looking forward to it.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Playing in the Sandbox, the podcast where we are deeply committed to inspiring action in today's leaders. And in today's episode, I am thrilled to be sharing a conversation with a good friend of mine who is the master of all things excellence in service delivery, Rich Acosta. Rich has a unique perspective and approach to leveling up your team, your company, and your organization by marrying together service delivery and hospitality. And I'm excited for you to join me and Rich as we dive in or step in to the sandbox. So kick off your shoes, get ready to step in, grab your pen and paper because you're going to want to take notes. He's got some great tips on teeing up the excellence of service delivery in your organization at every level. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I know it's going to be a good one for you too. Now, don't forget to head on over to tammyjbond.com/podcast and click on this episode so that you can download your copy of today's action plan. There are going to be tools, strategies, and tips that you can follow to take your service delivery, your customer service to a whole nother level. So again, head on over and grab your copy of today's action plan. Now, let's get going. Let's get into the sandbox, and let's get hearing from Rich Acosta on all things service delivery. All right. I am so excited, Rich, to have you in the sandbox today. Mr. Rich Acosta, hashtag Richcraft for those that know you well. You and I have a long history together, and I say that, but actually it's really only a few years, but it feels like we've been friends for a lifetime, right?
For sure.
So I am thrilled to have you as a guest in the sandbox today talking about excellence in service at every level, because you come from a hospitality background and now you're in a corporate environment delivering that same level of great excellence in service from a hospitality mindset, which I think is so important for leaders to grab hold of. So Rich, tell us who you are. Give me a high level of your background, and then we're going to dive into this, how to tee up excellence in service at every level of the organization.
Love that. And thank you for having me a part of your show. It has been incredible. The past guests you've had have been just phenomenal and impactful and life-changing. And so just to be included in that number is quite an honor. So, friend, I appreciate you for that. As for my history, I have roughly 25 years experience helping deliver and teach and promote and now direct what great service looks like. So I'm pleased to be with my newest company, and things are going swimmingly, and we're slowly but surely changing the culture about how people take care of others.
So let's talk about that, because I know where I met you originally, and I know where you are now, and it's a big change. So talk to me about that transition, because I think that's really important for listeners as well, that you can go from one service-based industry as you did in hospitality, right? And as a general manager of our favorite breakfast spot in town to now this management position with this international company, and you're having an impact on a global level with their customer service and excellence of service delivery. So talk to me about that. And I want to hear specifically about how was that transition for you from one leader position to another, really crossing over in industries?
I love that question, and I love telling this story. My first few weeks with my company, I just needed to sit back and soak it all in. You know, what I've seen with leaders in the past, they show up and they're gung-ho and they're ready to make changes, when in actuality, they don't know what those changes are or should look like, or how best to go about them. So for me, I really wanted to pair up with the company leaders and the stakeholders and find those pressure points that just needed to be relieved, and help create the environment where people could just be themselves, lead with their heart, and really drive and impact the business. So again, it took a while because I didn't want to come in and pontificate and show everyone that I knew things. I wanted to get their buy-in. I wanted to hear what they had to say and watch them work and watch them take care of our esteemed members. And slowly but surely, it just became a much clearer picture where we got the buy-in from our directors and executive committee, and we were able to lay out a step-by-step plan as to how best to impact and influence a hospitality-minded culture. And so far, we're seeing incredible results.
So bridging the gap for you between hospitality in a hotel and restaurant environment as a general manager, and then coming into this leadership position within a corporate environment. Tell me, as a leader, for you, what did you find to be, I'm going to actually say it, maybe most challenging?
That's great. That's great. Many of our current employees, proclaim that they show and portray great service at every step. But what we hadn't yet defined was what great hospitality looked like.
Yeah.
So it first became the most impactful thing was to define what both of those are. And we can do that in very simple terms. So when somebody says service is the action. It's the physical action of whether, if you're in a restaurant, it's bringing the drinks or taking the order, etc. But hospitality is the interaction. It's where people operate from a different place. So when people say I'm a great server, well, that's outstanding, and that's phenomenal. But really highlighting what hospitality means, where it comes from, and how it can involve the human spirit on a macro level, and people get to be their individual selves rather than be autonomous and stuck in the ways of the service. That was really the big thing to highlight. And once our people got an idea as to what that looked like, all of a sudden, the air smelled sweeter, and people were whistling and humming tunes on their way to work and on their way home, and it helped evolve along with others. An environment where, again, people could be themselves and not necessarily concentrate as much on the service, but what they could do to impact that service.
Yeah, you'd shared something about service is the action, hospitality is the interaction. And that is really across the board in every type of business, right? Where you can be, we're all a service-based business. Whatever you do, you are providing services to someone, right? Whether it's your client, your customer, your member, your staff as a leader, you are providing a service. And what I love about that is that the service can become transactional, which actually we don't necessarily want it only transactional. We want it to be relational. And that includes for the teams that we lead, right? So that's where when you talk about hospitality is the, the interaction, right? Tell me how you train that up in your people around you. How do you train up the interaction piece?
That's great. That's a great question. And when we started to, as a team, when we started to evolve the level of service and the level of hospitality to get to a place where our members were enjoying an experience, which is the end goal, right? It wasn't a one-step process. We started with surveying the team members in the field and asked, what improvements would you make? So we had to get their buy-in first. We had to get their ideas because they're on the front lines. They're the ones doing the work every day. And so it became imperative to really absorb what they were thinking, how they were feeling, and the direction in which they thought or knew that they could propel the business to greater heights. Mm-hmm. Once we did that, we kind of assembled all of those, put all those together, and created a committee that said, okay, what are the things we can do right now with the tools that we have? And we put those into place. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we got more ideas. Mm-hmm. And we were nearly inundated with ideas from the field. There were emails every day. Hey, I love what we're doing. Where did this come from? You know what? I've got an idea too. And then it just became a tide and this refreshing energy change. And all of a sudden people were Not that they weren't positive before, but they were more positive, and they were buoyant, and they were spirited, and they became more innovative.
Yeah.
And so once we did that, we started to celebrate those victories. So we looked at, here's what's in it for you. Look what's happened. Look what your members are saying about you. Look how much better you feel about coming to work and the incredible work that you do. And let's celebrate that arena and keep those positive ideas and positive energies moving forward. So it's not an overnight thing by any means, but what it takes is a real touch on what your people are thinking, how they're feeling, and get their buy-in as to how they can improve not only their little corner of the world, but the world as a whole.
And what does that do for the customer engagement, for the member engagement, from your experience? What have you seen as the shift?
Oh, that's great. That's great. So in the first, let's say 6 months, we saw a huge rise in NPS scores and reviews. And members who were having issues before found that there's a renewed sense of spirit, and there's a renewed sense of offering incredible hospitality and creating an experience. And so what we saw was our members as a whole really celebrated that and wanted to tell their friends and wanted to share reviews and wanted to share referrals, which is how we build a business. And it all starts with, well, it all started with the incredible minds of the phenomenal people with whom we work every day, and giving them an arena to where they could just speak up, know that their voice would be heard, and we could work together to put their ideas into motion. And we did.
So let's talk about the time, the effort, and the energy, because that's the teeing up, right? So talk to me
That's
about
right.
that. What is it that leaders you have found really, and I'm going to use need as an intentional word, need to get a hold of when it comes to teeing up and setting up that next level of service for their clients, customers, and members?
Love that. Love that. So
Well,
tee it
it's
up is
yours. You came up with the tee up. Let's be real.
well, that I did, but you
I'm
set
just
it up for
teeing
me
you up.
too, which yeah, well played. Well played. So tee it up is time, effort, and energy. And we can either spend, as leaders, we can spend that time, effort, and energy really developing our people, understanding what their goals are, how we can best impact their goals, how we can help them move throughout the company and do the incredible things that they want to do, whatever their goals are,
Mhm.
right? Or we're going to spend more time trying to find that diamond in the rough, that person who, might not necessarily need training, which is one in, and just a ridiculous number. But it's so much easier to spend that time, effort, and energy developing talent, developing people, cultivating their skill, and really bringing their ideas and their opinions and their beliefs to the front and say, we have you, we appreciate you, we work with you, and now how best do you want to impact your position? How best do you want to impact your business? So to tee it up is to really give someone the opportunity to really enjoy this perfect long flight, within the company, doing great things, celebrating their work, celebrating others, collaborations and cooperations, and really helping develop people into their best selves.
Yeah.
And of course, what are the results? What do we see? We see longer retention. We see lower turnover. We see higher profits. We see higher member counts, and we celebrate that because we are spending our time, effort, and energy developing people rather than spending more time and effort looking for the right people when we already have them.
Well, what you're doing is you're creating a properly proactive environment versus a reactive environment. And I know we've talked a lot about, because we both have a passion for when you encounter that disgruntled, unhappy client or member, and they want to, spew their frustrations and break up with you because something hasn't met their expectation. And we love going in and turning those around. I think you and I actually would agree on that
Yeah.
we get a certain something from turning those people around into what we call raving fans, right? So tell me what I guess when you encounter, what's the first thing that you do, maybe even a first, second, and third thing that you do to turn around someone who is frustrated, disgruntled, whether a team member or a client or member?
Yeah, yeah, a great question. And I learned this from Dr. Richard Baumel, who explained the SEER method, which I'm more than happy to share with all of you. So it starts with listening, and listening is a skill that sometimes goes overlooked, and rarely is defined the same by everyone. So happy to define that now just for this purpose. So listening is essentially the SEER method. So get a sense, right? When I'm sitting with someone who has whether it's a problem or a laundry list of issues with their service or experience, et cetera, I have to understand where they're coming from. I have to create mentally this common bond, and speak with them, meet with them, understand them on their level. So that takes in the beginning, that takes to get a real sense of what they're actually getting at. And then before I say anything, I internalize and I interpret. Right. So I'm getting all this information. I'm getting, whether it's complaints and frustrations, but I'm also getting moods. I'm getting feelings. I'm getting certain keywords, and those things are jumping out of me saying, okay, got a clear picture now. I'm starting to interpret what's happening in this conversation. And then I evaluate. And then I take everything that I've got, everything that this person's put before me, every time this person has wanted to just, scream from the rafters and say, I've got a problem and I need somebody's help. Well, I'm that person. And so now I'm evaluating all of those things, the emotions, the words, again, the message, and what's actually being said. And only then do I respond. And usually by the time I respond, I've got a great idea of not only what's happening on the surface, but what's happening under the surface. And to be able to satisfy those things is not only what they're looking for, but then the piece gets even better, right? Because most people don't know the difference between being listened to and being loved, because it's usually only the people that love you are the ones that listen to you. So if you're able to provide that skill, that necessary skill, with someone who just needs a shoulder to cry on, you're going to come out on top more often than not. And I mean, there are a few, throughout the years that, there wasn't, not much you can do about it, but smile and learn what you can, get the insights that you can, and move on. But for the most part, being able to go through that process when somebody is giving you all those things that bother them, and then come out on the other side, not only with a short-term resolution, but a long-term resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that they have somebody, that's fighting for them. They have an advocate who wants to be, the person who sets their journey on the right path. Then you not only might you have a customer for life, but you might have a friend for life, and somebody who's willing to text you every couple of weeks just to let you know how they're doing.
Right. Just to let
Which,
you know how the kids are. Yeah, I've had that. So what I love about all that you said is you said that, most people don't know the difference between listening and love. And I think it's listening and heard. And I really like what you said about the love that factor though, as well. Just being able to, they equate the two. If you listen to me, then you love me. But the other piece is, how do we know that we've heard what it is that your need, that you want, that your challenge is? And then what do you need to say to be complete with that frustration? I teach that a lot. And it's, conflict happens. Difficult conversations are necessary. Bold conversations are a requirement for any leader at some point, and sometimes more often than others for different seasons and reasons. But until we can really look at someone in the eye and say, what is it that you need to say to be complete? After I've heard you and I replay back to you, this is what I heard you say that your frustration is. That level of excellence in service, and part of that effort and that time is being willing to spend continuing to listen and reframe back to your
yes.
team member, to your client, that their frustration, I hear you. I respect that that's how you feel right now. What do we need? What do you need? What do you need to say to be complete, so that they can move on? And always wrap it up with an action plan. What are my next steps and what are your next steps? Because when we have that interaction in service, because service is not just for our customers, clients, or members, it's for first our employees, our team members. And when we meet them with that level of service, and reframe what we've heard in their frustration, be willing to spend that time, put in the effort and the energy to hear, reframe back, putting in an action plan of what they need, the outcome is impeccably different. The outcome changes. And you and I have talked about even going from this season of quiet quitting that we hear in the workforce now, right? that people are shrugging and being like, I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to duck and cover. I'm not going to try to rock the boat. I'm collecting my paycheck, but I'm not going to give above and beyond. When you hear people at that frustration level, you're showing you're going above and beyond. They're going to want to meet you there. And if not, then we invite them into a new opportunity. Right. But I think
Without
that's
question,
something I want to hit on too. And what you said is it's important in tying it all together and teeing up that excellence for your team members. It's as well as your clients, customers, members, that you're asking them, what more do you need to be complete, right? And you're giving them your follow-up and your buy wins. So important to build that strategy with them so they can really get that sense of that loving, being that loving side that you get me, you're with me, I'm not alone.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you say, what more do you need for me to feel complete? And I say, how best may I serve you otherwise? What do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
So love that. We have the same philosophy there, just a few different words, but the same emotion, the same energy, and the same effect.
Absolutely.
So
Everybody's got to have their own, got to. We all come up with our own way of saying it that serves our personality but the biggest thing is get comfortable with having that level of conversation and dialogue, and not just people, even when they're frustrated, and our customers, especially, or your clients or your members, when they're coming to you frustrated, it's not that they want a refund. I mean, we're having an issue right now with the service provider for something that we have going on with our well, and they're supposed to come out and dig the new well and fill the old one. And we've been on this proverbial top of the list for the last 2 months. And, but the list apparently doesn't keep moving, but yet it does. It's just really a strange list of excuses. Well, at this point, our frustration level is here. We're not being heard. And so we get to go have those bold conversations as the customer to say, here's my challenge and my issue, and here's by when I need it resolved. And and it's funny to be on the other side of, as a customer, to understand the value of this level of teeing up excellence in service. I'll put in the time, I'll put in the effort, and I'll put in the energy. I want you to match me where I'm at. I'm not asking for a discount. I'm not asking for a refund. I need to know you're putting in that same time, that same effort, and that same energy to resolve my frustration, right? As customer, that's what I need. And that's what your customers, clients, members want. That's what our team members want.
Of course. So few times do people actually want a refund. Many people don't want to turn around and say, okay, I'm done giving my money back.
Right.
Just like you said, what our members need, what our customers need, what they want is what they came for. Mm-hmm. What they researched, what they asked their friends about. If you went to a restaurant and your food wasn't good and you wanted a refund, you're going to leave hungry. And nobody wants to leave hungry. And you should never let your customers leave hungry, because they'll just go somewhere else. Right. So, a refund is certainly an option, but what we want to do is we want to course correct, right? Want to take the issue, find out what it is, turn it around, make sure that it never happens again, and use those insights for those other touch points, for other customers, and help share that knowledge throughout all of your employees or our employees as a great leader to say, here's what we learned. Here's how we got past it, and here's how it can never be a problem again.
Yeah.
And with that, over time, those issues become a thing of the past. And then we can spend our time, effort, and energy and tee up excellence and how we improve on what we've already improved on, which is the mark of a really incredible company.
What I love about what you've done is it 2 years coming up now, March? It's 2 years, right? In the 2 years that you've been at your company, not only have you created a whole department and a whole team and a whole way of doing service delivery for those frustrated and disgruntled members, you've actually now started to really do I think one of the most important and significant parts of it is developing the training for the staff on the ground to deliver excellence of service, so that you get fewer frustrated calls coming into the, I'll say, help center, if you will, right, to your customer service center, less frustrated calls that your team gets to field because you're training people at boots on the ground level, right? I love that you've done that. And what I would like to hear is, talk to me about, because I think this is really important for leaders in an up and coming management leadership position, or maybe they have an idea, right? There's a listener out there right now, and you've got an idea of something you want to launch in your company. Rich, what would you say is a good path, a suggested path for them to go on to have their idea heard by leadership and even implemented by leadership, right? To engage in what that conversation looks like. So there's a lot of people that sit on these great ideas and they're on their notepads and they never take action on them. And you took action and now have this thriving team that's having a massive impact across the organization. So congratulations, and tell that leader out there that's listening right now, how do you take that idea forward, launch it, and make it a reality?
Yeah, that's one of the great honors of my life to answer that question. So thank you for that. The first thing that as a leader, I recommend those people out there who are listening right now, they're like, yes, Tammy's right. I've got this incredible idea, but how do I sell it? How do I move it forward? And what I did and what really worked for me, and I've taken this from other leaders in my past, is that I demonstrated there was a clear need for change. And I did that with information and insights and what I'd learned, both from the P&L and both from an employee engagement impact and our member engagement impact. So I took all these things and I put them together with other executive leaders, and I said, there's a clear need here, and this need is that we have to find an additional level of support that's above and beyond what people expect. And of course, they said, well, what does that look like? And I said, funny, you should ask. Right. So that's how the team evolved, in that our immediate goal was to solve member concerns. But in a very short time, we found a greater way to impact our customers and our members, in that we wanted to evolve from damage control to damage prevention. And that was the key. And once we saw that, then there were other important things that were given to the team under their umbrella of service assistance. And what we found was, once we operated in that mantra, the customer complaints were cut in half within roughly 7 or 8 months. And people finally had a secondary resource. They could say, I've got somebody on the corporate level that's a great listener. And instead of overpowering, instead of taking the legs out from the people in our centers with whom these members deal with every day, what we did is we empowered the people in the field with what we were learning. And just like you said, develop like service evolutions. It's tough to change a company, but it's easy for a company to evolve. And that's what we've impacted. So over time, we take what we learn, we take the voice of the customer and say, here's what they're asking for. And then let's build a plan around how best to put that into action. Because if we don't, we're doomed to, continue making the same mistakes of the past, which is never a great sign for a company. So as we evolve, so in turn, evolve our level of service, our level of experience that we provide. And that was the key. So I guess to make a long answer longer, if you will, find a clear need that you see in the company, and show up with an idea and a plan. And then, of course, I can't forget this part, because this is perfect for the sandbox, a buy when, right? Here's
My
what
favorite.
I need.
I love buy wins.
Oh, I knew it. I knew that you would say that too. So here's what we can do. Here's what we aim to do. Here's the impact it's going to have on our company, and here's how long it's going to take to get that started. Mm-hmm. So if you have an idea, incredible listener out there who is just a huge Tammy fan as I, think about this. If you show up with the problem, lots of people can do that. If you show up with a problem, with a solution, you're going to get a lot more people looking in your direction saying, okay. And sometimes they're going to amend it. Sometimes they're going to evolve what you think so that it fits better, but that's okay. Yeah. At least you're coming heavy to the table, and that's what we're looking for in great leadership.
And it's so true. I love what you said on that, because a lot of people do show up with the problems. The complaints are rampant in most organizations and companies. but it's the solution focused. How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? How do we identify where do we want to be? But you did something, and I heard it in there. You didn't expressly state it, but I want to go back to it because I think it's important for that leader that's out there that's like, I have this idea and I'm sitting on it and I'm not sure who to take it to. You put together the data, you put together the pain, you knew everybody understood the pain point, but not only did you come with a solution, you actually expanded on the pain point to show what it was costing the company to not address it in a new and unique way. And when you did that, you got leadership's buy-in to say, yes, let's try it. Let's go ahead. Here's the window. Here's your 90 days, Rich. Go show me what you can do in 90 days. And I happen to know that you made an improvement in 90 days and you made a difference in the first 90 days. And it continued to build from there. You increased your trust level with the leaders, the decision makers that were saying, yeah, let's give this a try. Let's see what you can do. And as you made an impact and a change, their trust level grew. They gave you more territory, if you will. And now you have a team of 4. Is that right? Am I right? You have a team of 4 people where it was just you. And now you've got a team of 4 people and you've expanded it to a much greater level, and the impact on the bottom line, it's real. The numbers don't lie. And when you're tracking the data is there. So for you, leader that's out there that has this idea, you want to make a change or you see an improvement, get your numbers lined up, get your data to expose the pain point and come in with the solution to move over that, right? To correct it, to course correct that pain point. So it becomes a praise point, right? From pain to praise. That's what you've done. And I love that. One question though, that I also have is, what is the cost for leadership to not take a risk on some of these ideas that are going to come in from people? What would the cost from your perspective be to leadership in any kind of company if they don't take a chance to say, yeah, let's give that a try. Let's give that idea a try.
Regret, and continuing to, not contribute to a workplace that can evolve into a place that you create for yourself. Right. If those who aren't willing to speak up and want to keep the seat warm and want to not contribute, they're going to rotate. Those same people are going to rotate in and out. They'll go somewhere else and they'll go somewhere else and they'll go somewhere else. And many of those people are very happy to just lay under the radar, not make any bad press, not actively pursue ways to improve their workspace, their work area, their work life. And you know what? There are those out there. Yeah. But as great leaders, we should endeavor to inspire those people to stand up and say, I've got an idea. I know how to turn this around. I know what it's going to take, and I know when I can get it done. And really creating that kind of environment and celebrating that kind of environment and giving people the tools and the treasure map, right? That here's X marks the spot. Let me help you find it, because nobody found the treasure without the map, right? It never happened. No pirate movie ever. Yeah. So
the map is really very important.
Without a doubt. So helping somebody build that treasure map for themselves and say, hey, here's the end result. And look at this incredible treasure that awaits you. Yeah. It's just going to take, again, some time, effort, and energy to get there. But that's a heck of a lot cheaper than, having to hire somebody new all the time and continue to hope for the diamond in the rough, right? Rather than having the treasure map to get you there. So,
that's really, that's gold right there too. That's really good. All right. There is so much more that I want to chat with you about, but we're coming to the end of our conversation for today. There will be another one, I have no doubt. And so I look forward to that, having you back in the sandbox, because I want to talk about one very important topic as we round out here as a tee up for our next conversation. When you have that client that is absolutely not, there is nothing you can do. There is no way to turn them around. They are just angry. They're disgruntled. They're unhappy. And it really is, I guess I'm going to ask it in twofold. How do you know when it's time to break up with them? Right? Before they become more toxic, right? That in such a public marketplace right now where social media is rampant. How do you know? What's your markers for when it's time to say, thanks, goodbye,
Yeah,
and walk
that's
their
a great
file over to legal.
Yeah, another great question in the long line of great questions and probing questions by you. So that's difficult in the beginning. Everyone has a different expectation of what service and hospitality and a membership brings, right? When a member or a customer gets to the point where in conversation, despite your best efforts, just no matter how what you can offer and how much you can apologize and take ownership for what's happened, and if you still can't bring them along, right? Bonnie Raitt said it best. I can't make you love me if you don't. So once you get to that point, then it's best to end the relationship on a professional level before it becomes adversarial, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a really tough point, because sometimes people who avoid conflict, who avoid difficult conversations or bold questions in conversations, will simply just let a customer walk away, and then have to deal with whatever onslaught comes, whether it be through reviews or social media, etc. So what I like to do, and works really well for me, is after I've listened and after I have a really great understanding that this isn't a relationship that can be repaired, I ask the question, what could we do differently so that we don't have a conversation like this with anyone else ever again? This is your opportunity as you walk away, Mr. Customer, to really influence how we perform service or provide an experience for our customers. And knowing where you are now and how you feel and how we got you to this point, which is it so rarely happens, but it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Help me understand the things that you think, if you were me, what I could do to turn this situation around for good.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going to do is, in 30, 60, 90 days, I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to help you understand exactly what you shared with me and how we make a difference in other customers. So for that, you get to help change a company today. And regardless of as if I keep you as a customer, your impact will be widespread, and the ripples in the pond will still flow long after you're gone.
What I love about everything that you just said is this: you might come to an agreement, or you get to the point where it's best to separate, right? It's best to sever the relationship. However,
Right.
there is still an amount of gold, going back to that treasure map, there is still amount of gold to be mined from that relationship to improve our service, and so that we don't end up having another customer, client, member like that, to get to that point where we need to come to a mutual agreement to separate. And I appreciate,
Sure.
I think that's huge, because that ripple effect is even greater than those that you hold on to, in my mind, in my opinion. So yeah, that's fantastic. All right, Rich, we are coming to the end of our time in the sandbox. I appreciate you digging your toes in and getting into this wonderful conversation about teeing up excellence in service at every level. I know we're going to have more of these conversations, and I was excited that you said yes to joining me today. And I want you to know that the difference that you're making, and just the difference that you've made in our conversation, will have an impact outside of you, much bigger than what you're even having today, which is a huge impact. And so I thank you for coming to the sandbox to share with the people that come and join me here every week for a conversation around excellence in service. And thanks for being you. I really appreciate you, friend.
And I appreciate you. Love the opportunity. And like I said, a huge honor to be able to sit and share one of these passionate conversations with the full knowledge that they are going to affect somebody and help a leader develop, whether it be a little bit or a bunch, and to make our world a better place. I'm pleased to do that with you. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rich.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me in the sandbox today. I am always honored when people take the time out of their busy schedule to listen to what we have going on in the bold and powerful conversations that we share in the sandbox. And thanks to my friend Rich Acosta for joining me. Always love having great conversations with him. I always learn something new, and I'm so blessed by the opportunity to share his level of excellence around all things service delivery with you in the sandbox today. My hope is that you're leaving with new tools, tips, and strategies to navigate your personal leadership, your team leadership, and your next bold conversation with a team member or with a customer. And hey, it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment and share this episode with somebody that you believe could really benefit from it, especially maybe that manager on your team that you know has some really great novel ideas, but they haven't yet brought them forward for you to put into action yet because they're sitting on them wondering, should they? Maybe I shouldn't. Hey, Rich gave you great tools in the sandbox today to use to get those ideas forward. So share this episode with somebody that you think could really benefit from the conversation that we had. And, third party affirmations go a long way in today's world economy. And I would be honored, so honored, if you shared that value that you gained from spending time in the sandbox today with someone else. Head on over, leave a comment, rate this as a 5-star. Tell us what you think. Tell us what more questions you might have about service delivery, and we'll make sure we come back and answer those for you in a future episode. And again, don't forget to head on over to tammyjbond.com/podcast to get your copy of today's action plan. Now, remember, leadership is not something that you're born with. It's something that you grow into. Thank you for taking the time to grow into your next level of leadership in the sandbox. Make it a great day.